All right, so our very first project today is Dundon race headers, side muffler delete, and their lifetime center exhaust. I had the race headers and the side mufflers on my previous GT3. This one, I'm adding the center muffler. So what I've been waiting for is their center muffler, so I can drop the entire factory exhaust out and put the new, all in one piece, put the new headers and exhaust in place. So this will be the first project on my twin bush lift. Normally, the way that these lifts are designed, there's a slight rake to it. And so because the engine's in the rear, technically I should back it in. But just for camera today, so I had plenty of room to work to get the camera behind me, I'm going to put the car on backwards. I tested it last week, everything's fine. I mean, I lifted it up to 72 inches or so. There you could hang on the rear control arms and this car's not going anywhere. Largely because we're putting our jack pads in place, and these are super sturdy. You know, there's plenty of coverage on the car with these pads. All right, so you put those on the jack points. Let's lift this thing up. What you doing, Rye? Rye's got our Prevost 25-foot tube. He's running a bottle cap through and trying to race it. Uh-oh, didn't make it. I still have some work to do on the lift, figuring out exactly where I want to build some pads. Yeah, and I still have to get the air lines run. I'm gonna be doing that in 2 weeks. And then I've got the electricians coming this week to get the circuit set up properly. Double check everything. All good. Sucker's not going anywhere. All right, so let's pop open the rear trunk, rear deck lid. See, the real advantage of a scissor lift is I can open the doors however I want. No issues with poles or anything like that. I'm going to be able to get up in here. We still have to take the bumper cover off because the side mufflers won't come out. The heat shield gets in the way. All right, so here's the exhaust setup. These were on my other car, so these were the this is a side muffler delete. They have a special bung in here and a spaced out O2 sensor. So the primary O2 sensors go into this bung, which then in turn allows us to have catless headers without a check engine light. And then the OE DME, the OE ECU on this thing is so good at adapting that after a few cycles, this thing will run really cleanly, even without the cats, and really efficiently. And then we should make we'll make 25 to 35 more horsepower on the car. So I'll show you more of this as we go to put it on, but don't get too bent out of shape. It's not pretty. It's certainly not as pretty as the factory titanium rear center section, but the flow characteristics are going to be a little better, and then this won't crack. I shouldn't have an issue because I'm not heat cycling the exhaust and really beating the daylights out of it on the track. But generally, the center section of the exhaust, they're problematic in that they crack on these cars, and so we have our equal length. These are technically not long tube headers, they're technically equal length headers. So they're harmonically tuned to maximize flow, and by proxy, these get a significant amount of horsepower difference. On my GT3, I got 55 horsepower, no joke, on the dyno. similar conditions, same dyno, different day, but the conditions were within a degree or two together, and we got 55 horsepower on it. So RS doesn't make as much with the 4.0, but this combination will do really well. Charles Dundon is eventually going to make me a 3-inch version of this. So that both of these, see this little neck down here, so this little section here, this center section can accept 3-inch. He just hasn't made them yet, and so I may swap them out, we'll see, and go to 3-inch, which theoretically may make a little lower end torque and a little more horsepower. So let's start taking the car apart, and I'll be talking more about this exhaust and why and all of that as we do the install. Man, you have no idea how excited I am to be able to do something like this. I'm going to lower it down a little bit. Just so that I can get to these here a little easier. So to get the rear bumper cover off, it's really actually quite simple. First we take the head or the tail lights out. So these 4 bolts, these 4 I think they're T17. So these 4 Torx will come out. Then these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there are 3 on each side. 1, 2, 3. And then there are, I think, 5, maybe 6 underneath. And so let's work on getting these ones on the top out, and then we'll tackle the rest here. I think these are T20s. Yeah, this is a T20. I can't wait to get my tools dialed in. I have so many projects going on right now, it's absolutely insane. The tools are going to be the next probably 3 projects down the road. I'm working on my custom install solution, working on the compressed air solution, mainly for myself, to have the compressed air project dialed in and ready for this place. So I got Cox hose reels comes, all the Prevo stuff is here. My friends Tony and Mike, fellow OGers, are coming in 2 weeks, and we're gonna plumb this whole place with Prevost piping. Wait till you see this stuff. It's absolutely incredible. Obsessed Garage approved for sure. So we're gonna have some professional grade compressed air throughout this place. And the main reason why I need that, I promise you, I'm gonna have parts, little magnetic parts holders, rolling carts, everything that you need to be a real man mechanic, I'm gonna have in here. I just need a little more time. I'm working on it. Right now we're working on a skeleton crew of products and tools, but we have a lift. So look at this. I'm not on my knees here doing this. I don't have it up reversed on Rhino ramps. So this is just this is really exciting to be able to have this set up. So custom install, I'm not really going to wash cars here, or very rarely, because I live a mile down the road and I have a dedicated wash bay. But mainly I want this just to be sort of the testing grounds, and if we're doing any kind of demos or anything like that, doing trainings and things here, I'm going to want to have the ability to wash, here to do, if we're doing a decon or teaching people how to do that. Hey, Ryan, turn it down, please. All right. Oh. So turn it down. So the lights come out like so. Yeah, the light came out like this. I'll show you on the other side, but it slid right out. We have our little Molex plug. So there's light number 1. Set this aside. Light number 2. So you just push on the plug, and then this comes out pretty easily. Okay, these are T30s.
Are you driving right now?
There's 4 of these up top here. All right, so we get these 3 off of here. Should be able to do this without removing the wheels. A work table is probably going to be in order, a little cart for both detailing and little modifications. But this is life changing. To be able to stand up here and do this, oh my word. It's gonna be even better when I have my dad and Jared here in town can help me do this stuff. Move the camera around, you'll accomplish a whole lot more. So there's 3 of these we have to deal with. So, you know, in general, one of the beauties of these Porsches is that they come apart and go back together seamlessly. You know, so we're gonna take this bumper off and put it right, well, I better not speak too soon. But we're gonna take the bumper off, put it back on with minimal effort and very little need to do any aligning or anything like that. It just comes off and it goes right back on. Yeah, this is definitely a different size. Yep, smaller. I promised myself I was gonna use gloves, but we'll see how long this lasts. Let's see, what size is this? Yeah, it's a T25. That's weird. You know, the GT3 is the same size throughout the rear bumper. While we're here, let's get this one. A lot of times these are loose enough to just remove by hand. And then while we're on this side, just work our way around underneath here. Removing all these on the bottom. Yeah, there's 3 on each side. Remove the rest and come back to you when I get there. All right, so now we should be able to pull the rear bumper cover off. And make sure. That felt a little weird. There's another screw up under on the RS. I don't know why that wasn't coming off. So once we take that off, we'll be good. But it's up underneath the molding here, or the fender liner. Screw gloves, man. All I do is make my hands sweat and I can't do anything. I'd rather have some greasy hands. Yeah, it's actually a T30, but I use a T25 because I had the 1/4 inch was a little easier to get in there, and I don't have a T30 1/4 inch. Okay, so now we ought to be able to take this off. Much easier. I knew something wasn't right. So now we have to remove the plate light here. It'll take me a little while to figure out what the best heights are to mess with this thing. Come on. There we go. So before you freak out, like everybody did on the others, you can set this right on the ground. It's plastic on plastic. Nothing's gonna happen. So there we go. Rear bumper covers off. Now we need to remove all these little side pieces. That's pretty cool to see the so you see the intake tubes, very different than the GT3 where they come up here from the top down. These come from the the sides in. So I'm gonna actually, before I get any further in here, I want to pull these covers off and make sure they're BMC filters in there. I'm under the impression that they are BMC from the factory, which is an upgrade over the GT3. And these are little T20s, but a few parts are different on this. This cover comes off all in one piece. Yeah, it certainly doesn't look like doesn't look like there's anything you could do to improve the intake flow on this thing. It's a pretty straight through looking design. Yep, there you go. BMC filters right from stock. Everything looks good and clean in there, so nothing I need to mess with. So the GT3 has paper filters. There's a design of the filters. Cool. So I'm going to put the cover back on. Then we'll start taking all the heat shielding off. So now let's begin to remove all the heat shielding so we have enough space to get all the exhaust out. There's a bunch of little 12mm pieces that hold all this side stuff on. Let's see, that's a Torx. Those two, there's one up under here as well. Bunch of T30s on here. There's one. Wonder if I'm gonna have to take the intake things off. There's one up under here. So the design of this is quite a little bit different than the GT3. Figures it's smaller. So these two up here in the middle are T25s. Didn't really occur to me that this would be different than the GT3, but I guess it makes sense. There's one way in there. Luckily, thus far, I've had the right tools. Hopefully I don't have to run home. There's the side piece. So that way we'll be able to slide the, I don't think I need to take the intake side arm off. Looks like that'll slide out now. So since we're already doing this, I might as well take the bumper off as well. So I'm gonna go over to the other side and knock that out real quickly. So almost got the bumper off. Get this off, will be completely opened up. This is all aluminum, so it's not particularly heavy, but all right, so now we're all opened up. So I'm going to raise the car up so that we have a little better access underneath here. All right, I think, yeah, I'm gonna come up a little higher. Maybe I should have put it on backwards if I knew it was gonna come up this high. I can still go significantly higher if I want to, but I think that'll do it. All right, so we're gonna take this plate off. Oh, this is amazing. Leave that middle one in there. No, the plate's never been taken off. I think first thing I'll do, pull the O2 sensors off. I'm trying to think of, because I want to drop this all, it's all going to lower the car later. But I want to drop it all out in one piece, right? So that I can just leave it together and we don't have to mess with these bolts here at all. So these straps hold the center section on. There are 2 bolts up under here. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bolts on the header. So I think what I should do, I'm going to disconnect the vacuum lines. Yes, we'll disconnect the vacuum lines off the valves, and I'll work my way from back to front. So I'll take the 9 header bolts out of each side, and then I think what I'll do is take the side muffler. There's 2 on each side bolts. Maybe I should just take the whole brackets off. It should hang on these here. We'll lower it down and be able to drop the whole exhaust out. So our O2 sensors, and for those of you crescent wrench haters, don't yell at me, this is what I've got here. I didn't bring my larger wrenches with me. So remember that gray goes in the back, to the back of the car. And green goes to the front. So O2 sensor number 1. Freaking hate crescent wrenches, you're right. Yeah, usually once you break the O2 sensor loose, it comes right out. I should come up another couple inches while I can. So now we got our 9 header bolts. Let me see if I can show you those. All right, you see our different header locations. So I'm gonna pull those out, and I'm always nervous about headers because they go right into the block. So I'm gonna do those by hand, 12. All right, so I'm gonna go through and take all these off. All right, so let's pull off the vacuum line so I don't forget about this. Kind of in the way here. Okay, those are for our valves. I'm gonna take these 2, these look like E10. No, probably E12 external torques. So all I have are these 2. And then these 2 external torques, and then these 2 here, and the whole exhaust is going to come out. I'm trying to think what would be the best course. Should I take, I think, well, let's take one side out and see what happens here from see how much it droops. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing closer to the ground because they're 40. This is around, I would guess, around 100 pounds. Forget what the total weight of this exhaust is. And then we'll put these back in. Leave the brackets on the exhaust because we won't need the brackets for the new exhaust. I'm thinking it'll sit on the studs there. I'll get this thing down close to the ground in case I do drop it. It isn't going to drop too far, although there's a little tension on this. And then the advantage of this, I kept having to replace different screws and bolts and things on my previous GT3 with all the different exhaust iterations. Now that I know what I want, I won't have to take these apart. There should be a one-time deal, if I'm lucky, hopefully, where I'm able to just, if I do get the new .2 RS, I'll be able to just swap it really quickly. Tell you what, this first go is a little nerve-wracking up here. So, a lot of people, a lot of reviewers and stuff that was talking about the titanium exhaust. Well, the exhaust isn't titanium, just the center muffler is. Exhaust is T304 stainless, so quite a bit different than titanium. I'm not a huge fan of, now this doesn't really matter because it's mainly just a pass-through, but titanium in general has a different resonant frequency, so I prefer the sound of stainless steel. It sounds more substantial to me. I've had several titanium type exhausts over the years on different cars, and most of the time I've always ended up swapping them out for something else. Inevitably, when I make an exhaust video, people immediately start talking about IPE and FI and Army tricks, which are all pretty much the same thing. I don't know for a fact, but I think they're all made in the same spot. But there's no engineering behind that stuff. It's all, actually, let me not call it engineering. There's actually probably more engineering behind it, and they're just 3D scanning it and just making some tweaks to the exhaust, but they don't, you know, those exhausts, notice how I've never seen one on a dyno. I've never seen anyone do it before and after. It's not like there's any write-ups to show you, you know, here's what the IPE exhaust does. This Dundon exhaust is the only one where they did like hardcore testing on. You know, Sharkworks, GMG, both are, you know, reputable tuners. You know, GMG I think has done a little work after the fact, you know, to see, you know, after seeing what Dundon had done. But I think Sharkworks just decided, you know, it wasn't worth the, you know, wasn't worth the effort. So their center section is a really good all-around option. You know, where you just take out the center muffler, put in their center section. Sounds great, really tame. I find that that's the, you know, that's like the gentleman's version of an exhaust for this car. You know, that's what you would want if you know, you're looking for a good all-around system. For me, the thing that bothers me on these cars are the valves. You know, the valves on the stock exhaust are really intrusive. You know, I'm still not a huge fan of the valves even on the Dundon, but the transition, the valve transition is much smoother, much more seamless on the Dundon than it is on the factory. So when you do just the center section, I mean, think about this, the valves are still here, the side mufflers are still here. So the center section, although the easiest, least expensive, you know, decent bang for the buck, it doesn't make any power, doesn't lose any power, doesn't make any power and doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. You know, it just changes the sound, which is, you know, what most people are looking for. I just wanted something a little bit more than that. All right, let's see if my plan is gonna work here. I don't know about this. This thing's gonna drop right on my darn head. All right, so let's do this. Let's take our wood here. This whole thing's gonna come down in one piece. This is where having some friends would really help. All right, straps are off. We're gonna reuse those straps on the Dundon. Okay, that side's out. What's holding this on? Oh, there's still a darn bolt on here, idiot. No wonder. Figures. Now, that's why it won't come out. Okay. So this would be simple with two people, especially if someone was watching the back of the other one. Now, how am I going to do this? Boom. Nice. Exhaust is out. All in one big piece. That's actually pretty easy. So my plan worked for once. Here's what the stock exhaust looks like. All right, so here's what we got. Right, so what I had on my previous GT3 were the headers, side mufflers. Right, these are from my GT3, my previous GT3. You can see they're, you know, used. So these have, you know, OE-like valves, and so the operation is similar to stock, but again with the better path or better flow. With the loss of the giant side mufflers, we're obviously going to reduce a lot of the weight, but the valve transition is much smoother, as I was saying before. So three, you know, obviously a flat six, so we have a 6-cylinder, so we have, you know, 3, you know, inlets to the headers. Then the tube length is, I believe, calculated roughly equally. So we have equal length. I guess they could be classified as long tube, but I think they're called equal length headers, not long tube headers, into our 3-inch, you know, side muffler deletes, where we have the welded bung where the O2 sensor goes in. So both O2 sensors go in like, you know, like so. And then, if I remember correctly, the green one goes in the back and the gray one goes in the front. and then we, you know, connect right into the new. This is a part that I haven't had before, but this is the new center section. So one of the issues, as I was talking about earlier, is that the titanium or even the regular center muffler tends to blow up. So this is much heavier, not so pretty. It looks a little Frankensteinish, but this is built much more stoutly so that it doesn't break, and you can't see it anyway. And then I have the new Dundon 4-inch tips, which are going to look great. So you can see the substantial difference in the stock exhaust, right? You know, titanium center section, which is great. It's just not very durable. I don't think many guys are blowing them apart on the street, but there have been hundreds of these things that they grenade, they blow up, you know, they blow holes in them or start leaking or cracking. What we have here, factory headers going into pretty sizable, pretty high flow cats into these giant side mufflers into a much smaller looking, you know, valve system. So and the valves are upside down where they're right side up on the Dundon system. So we eliminate several, I want to say, I think we're eliminating 30-40 pounds overall, and then, you know, obviously all this heat next to the rear tires, so we're reducing some weight off the rear end of the car and then improving flow. Most of the flow is in the Dundon system is done through testing and calculation. So there's a, I don't know if it's called the Venturi effect, but there's a tuning or harmonics effect to making sure that the exhaust gases flow and flow at the highest velocity possible. And so that's why you can't just bolt on some pipes to a Porsche and make power, because the factory exhaust design is actually pretty ingenious. But it took, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tests in the dyno, you know, for Dundon to get this right. So I know it makes power. I didn't dyno the RS before and after, but, you know, these make, you know, 25 to 35 horsepower. So let's get working. Again, I don't want any chance of cross threading on the studs that come out of the block. So these are going to go in by hand to make sure our gasket is in place. All right, so the header's in. I'd forgotten how much of a pain, one, it is to get up under here and get the screws in because the headers are so much bigger. And then secondly, to get it to line up, got a little tweaked in shipping, not damaged, but just tweaked because they have these, you know, spring-loaded joints. And so we're going to work on getting this one lined up now. I found the easier thing to do when we're trying to line them up is to pull the clips off. And so we just pull these off, or the springs off. So we pull these off. And then what we'll do is we'll use these as a guide to get it roughly lined up. Shoot, how did I do this before? There we go. That's what I did. Okay. So we use the floor here. Get these roughly lined up. I should have a rubber mallet, but I don't. Just to get these all on the same plane, and we'll bring it up here to the car. See if we can get it lined up. I got to put the gasket in, but that's roughly where I'm at. We're not even close. Close. I think I'm gonna be able to get it on there now. I think. Let's bang this one in a little bit. Oh, what the heck? All right, we got some headers in, or at least hanging. I gotta put some bolts on here. This takes a little banging around to get these suckers to line up. I remember the first time I put these on, they went right on. This time took a little bit of extra effort. All right, so we're gonna tighten these from the inside out. Let's start with the first one. There's a lot more access, I feel like, on the driver's side than there is on the passenger side. But I've got a 3/8 wobble on here so I can get on each one of these nuts. A few of these center ones are a little hard to get it on there, so you just got to be careful. Pretty easy to tighten, I feel, if you ask me. Tell you what, it's nice to do an exhaust and not have a headache the whole time from hanging upside down. This is like a darn dream come true. So, Dundon has tuned this so that we don't need a tune, or tune the exhaust, I should say. So we don't need an aftermarket tune with even though we're catless. But you're all wondering, just like I am, what would that sound like? That'd be pretty sweet. All right, time to work on the side mufflers, or side muffler delete. Let's lower this down a bit. How cool is it to be able to just lower it a little bit? Before I get too far ahead of myself, let me put the retaining springs back on the headers. If you buy these headers, I think I'm gonna put them up in my, stupid. I think I'm gonna put them up in my store so that you can buy them from me. So hit me up if you have a GT3 and you're thinking about these, or even the non-race version. The catted version is also a solid option. The simple way, if they come and they need to be lined up, you want to start with lining up the, where the spring catches, or where the spring retainers are, and then you can start sort of beating on it a little bit to get it to line up on the car. Here goes nothing. As long as I don't let that go. That's why, you idiot. Boom. I was loosening it. Idiot. So, would have been a lot easier. I would have had it the first time. Alright, that's the way we go. Put that sucker on there. I don't want to tighten it down. I just want to keep it in place so then I can center it up when we get the rest of the thing in the right spot. Center muffler on. Wow, that's pretty stout. There's a donut gasket. Looks like a stainless steel retainer type ring. And that will go on like so. Yeah, so that goes like that. Let's get you in there to show you what we're working with. So there's the, looking through the center exhaust, edge of the header, and so then naturally a side muffler goes, or side muffler delete, should be the little valve side pipe goes in here. And one of the keys to this exhaust is a lack of drone. It sounds insane. I'm really interested to see what doing this center section does to it. Yeah, so the two cut sections go upright. The two little the edges that are rounded off are the ones that go on the top. Or, I'm sorry, that oppose one another. Wow, that fits really nicely. So get these in the right spot. There we go. Gaskets are pressure fit. Just put a couple screws on here. I'm gonna leave everything nice and loose so I can go around and line it all up. So as I was saying pretty earlier today, when we first started the exhaust, first started putting this on, if you look at the craftsmanship of this looks very, it looks like a guy in a machine shop machined this thing, which is pretty much the truth. Charles is machining these by hand largely, and so the finish of these is, especially the center, the muffler might scare you a little bit. I'm telling you, I wouldn't. The amount of research, Charles is like a gosh darn mad scientist. So the amount of research that goes into what this thing is, off the charts. You know, I probably could stand for it to look a little prettier. But in this case, I've tried pretty, and pretty doesn't cut it. So again, I'm just gonna hand tighten to get in place. Now, again, the prettiness of these, I mean, these came off of my other car, so I like the idea of keeping it upright like that. Keeping it inside here so I don't have to see that bolt. All right, so side muffler, so a header, side muffler. Actually, while we're here, let's put our O2 sensors in. So the gray one, so this larger gray one goes in here. So I always twist it the opposite direction, put it in place, turn that a bunch that way. When I come back around, it straightens it out. Just a couple of little clips up there, it pops out. And then the green one, same story. Twist it up, put it in. O2 sensors, and that side's done. I'm gonna go around, do the other side, and I'll come back to you. All right, so I just marked the center of the car here. So it looks like I've got my exhaust centered up. Let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm just getting these moderately tight. Then we'll come back and fix them. Torque them the rest of the way here by hand. So generally you're going to want to use something like, I usually use WD-40, but I've just got a damp towel here, paper towel. Just want to get some of the fingerprints off. First thing I'm going to do is fire it up, check for some leaks. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I don't want to get too hot. Valves work. Now it sounds like an RS. That's sick. All right, let's put this thing back together. Let's go for a spin. By the way, I opened the door up back here so we don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning. So, you know, bumper goes back on the same way it came off, so I'm gonna spare you that, mainly because I want to turn some music on and just relax here for a few minutes. But I'll come back to you when it's time to line up the tips, and then I always end up doing a separate video for audio, so you'll have to bear with that. But so I always separate the install from the regular, but maybe I'll go set the camera up outside and at least get you a clip in the parking lot. So far so good. Project's going really well. Everything's on, back together, put the tips on. Let's hope we don't get a massive check engine light. But what we'll do is we'll get these centered up. I'll probably move these all the way up to the top, yeah. So these are the Dundon slash cut version, which I like the best. conforms to the bumper, how it kind of slopes downward. The plate on, we got to button up a couple things up top, put the lights back in. I mean the plate, the underneath plate. I'm gonna go drive around the block. So, you know, the install, let's see, I don't know what time I started this. I don't know, maybe 3 hours in, 2 hours in, something like that. No, more than that. Let's see, what time is it? See, it's 4 o'clock. Yeah, so I'm about 4 hours into the project. You know, taking my time. You know, it would have taken a lot less time, but the headers were a little misaligned from shipping. So that took me probably 30% of the time. It took me at least just an hour and a half just to get the headers on, which normally doesn't take me as long. Install's pretty, you know, pretty basic. I mean, if you watch this video, or if you can always go back and watch some of my other GT3 exhaust videos. There's a couple of differences on the RS, mainly on the, you know, the sides here. A couple of bolt differences, which, you know, again, you could be able to go back and reference this video if you were going to do this yourself. And I've done all my other GT3. I did, you know, 13 different variants on my back, you know, on some Rhino ramps and you know, and a couple of jacks. So don't let the lift fool you. You can certainly do it. Now, it's funny, I feel, even though, you know, I'm 4.5 hours in this project, I don't feel beat up, which is, man, having the lift is awesome. Let's lower this down. So one thing you want to make sure, don't forget to plug in your lights. Otherwise you'll get a code. You don't have to take your tail lights out again if you can help it. So hopefully we should have this pretty licked, that hopefully it won't throw any codes. And this is plastic on plastic, so don't tighten these down too much. But we shouldn't have any codes. I can't wait to hear this thing. I've been driving around with a RS, not making a whole heck of a lot of noise. I mean, the stock exhaust sounds great, but this sounds next level. And then to have the new center muffler. And so there's a quiet and a loud version. This is the loud version. You know, the quiet is for, you know, if you're doing like Laguna Seca or Atlanta Motorsports Park or some other, you know, other noise ordinance specific tracks. I found that this is by far the easiest car that I've ever worked on. Now, granted, you know, I'm not pulling the motor, pulling engines and stuff, but a rather simple vehicle to do. And everything's so easy to line up. I mean, that's the extent of how much lining up I needed to do. So my next step is to get the compressed air setup done. And I really want to get some cabinets, and so it'll be more convenient to flip the car around, right? Because most of my work's going to be done up front there. And, you know, the car will also be more stable, you know, when I get my cabinets. And you know, the guys from Lista are coming by next week, and then we're going to talk about doing Lista, Sabre. I'm going to do Sabre in some other spots of the garage because I want to have a high-end and low-end option. And so the guys from Lista are coming by to check out the place, talk about hopefully sponsoring me. We'll see. Sonic cabinets are another that I'm really interested in, but I'm going to have them, you know, cornered up over there. I'm going to get the, you know, the audio system all set up on the cabinets or in the cabinets, and then I'm going to get some real tools, both air tools, electric tools, and hand tools. It's going to be awesome. All the while, my parents should be here soon to be shipping out of here as well. And then we'll see what happens, but Michelle said I'm not allowed to move for 5 to 7 years, but I think we're gonna outgrow this place pretty quickly. I got a lot of products we're gonna be stacked in here, you know, floor to ceiling. All right, done, 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 done. Done. Wow. I'm gonna fix my plate. I've got a Villanova sticker that I'm gonna put over the G so I don't get, killed by the mason guys that don't like me having that. All right, so I'm gonna get it off the lift and then let's go running around the block. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the floor.